Intuition is not a gift reserved for a chosen few, nor an inaccessible mystical mystery. It is a biological electromagnetic response system, a living language that the body speaks before the mind forms words. The body perceives first, interprets later. A sudden chill, a knot in the stomach, an inexplicable calm, all of these are messages spoken in a dialect modern reasoning has forgotten how to hear. When intuition seems to vanish, it isn't wisdom that is missing, it's the silence required to hear it. Constant noise, mental, digital, emotional, layers over the inner signal with survival, control, and doubt. Intuition does not compete with intellect, it waits. It does not shout, it hums. It appears when frantic movement ceases and the body is once again allowed to be the sensitive instrument it was designed to be. Bruce Lipton explains that every cell is a vibrational sensor, responding to both internal and external environments. When we are in coherence, the body functions as a clear antenna. When we are in tension, it becomes a receiver of static. Joe Dispenza adds that when the brain and heart enter harmony, they generate an ordered electromagnetic field that amplifies subtle perception, the kind of knowing that precedes logic. Intuition, then, is no accident. It is a physiological state of coherence. Thus, intuition is not imagination. It is feeling the direction before the mind understands the map. It is the body speaking in a language older than words, older than fear. A contraction may whisper, "Don't go." An expansion may say, "This way." The body speaks the language of frequency, and the field responds to that signal with precise accuracy. When body, heart, and mind align, the space where intuition lives appears. In that place, the universe is no longer a mystery to decode. It becomes an intimate conversation between vibrations. Life responds not to effort, but to tone. And every time you breathe, grow silent, and listen, your entire system reprograms itself to recognize the language that has always been there, the silent tongue of wisdom pulsing within you. Intuition lives in the body, not in the mind. Before thought can form any hypothesis, the body has already registered the vibration of the environment. It communicates through subtle variations, a shift in breathing, a faint shiver, a sensation of contraction or expansion. It is the biological field, fascia, organs, heartbeat, skin, responding to vibrational data before it becomes reasoning. The fascia, that fine conductive web surrounding muscles and organs, is an intelligent tissue. It captures microfrequencies, translates emotions, and stores memories. Bruce Lipton describes the body as a living antenna, sensitive to oscillations in the surrounding field. When you walk into a room and feel something, without knowing why, it is your biology performing an instant energetic reading. The body reads the field before the mind decides what to think about it. Silent knowing is exactly that, information without words. It is not imagination, it is perception. When you pay attention to your own bodily responses, you begin decoding this language. A tightening may signal misalignment. A sudden lightness may indicate coherence. The body does not lie. It simply responds to what is true or dissonant to your system. Joe Dispenza teaches that the heart is the first to react to any stimulus. It detects the field before the brain. When the heart's frequency is harmonic, intuition expands. When disorder is present, the signal becomes scrambled. That's why the first step to reopening the intuitive channel is to reconnect with physical sensation, not as noise, but as sacred language. The somatic language of intuition is simple, but it demands presence. You must slow down to hear the body, breathe so the mind becomes receptive, and feel so the field can answer. When that listening becomes constant, life stops being a sequence of doubts and becomes a dance between subtle signals and conscious responses. The body is a silent library. Every experience, every emotion felt or repressed is recorded not only in the mind, but in the cells, the breath, the posture. Bruce Lipton explains that cells listen to the chemical and electrical environment created by your thoughts and emotions. Over time, this environment becomes biological memory. It's not just mental recall, it's vibrational memory. Traumas and joys, fears and passions, everything that has not been integrated remains as electrical information circulating through the nervous system. When you encounter something similar in the present, the body recognizes the frequency and reacts before the rational brain can make sense of it. A scent, a voice, a glance, and an old program is activated. It's the body saying, "I've lived this before." The problem was never that the body lies. On the contrary, it is brutally honest. What happened is that we lost somatic literacy, the ability to read and interpret what it communicates. We learned to trust ideas more than sensations. And so we layer logic over physical signals until bodily wisdom becomes buried under mental noise. Joe Dispenza reminds us that true change begins when the body stops being a copy of the past and becomes an instrument of the present. This is only possible when you return to feeling, when you recognize that your reactions are not weaknesses, but echoes of experiences asking for integration. When you welcome a sensation without fleeing, without analyzing, the body finally releases what was trapped. Reading the signals begins with the simple act of listening. Short breath indicates defense. Tensed shoulders signal overload. Warmth in the chest may mean openness. The body speaks in sensory metaphors. When you learn to translate those metaphors, intuition becomes precise, almost clinical. That is the moment body and consciousness become allies again. Knowing and feeling walk side by side. Behind every sensation, there is a vibration. Every emotion, every thought, even every silence emits a measurable frequency. Bruce Lipton explains that cells function like tiny antennas, exchanging signals with the surrounding field. The body is both transmitter and receiver of energetic information. Intuition is not random. It is the conscious translation of that vibrational communication. When something is not in coherence with your truth, the body contracts. It's an electrical response. Energy pulling back for protection. When something is aligned, there is expansion, lightness, a soft flow of warmth. The system opens, the field stabilizes. This contrast between contraction and expansion is the binary code of intuition, your inner yes and no. Joe Dispenza teaches that emotional vibration is the language of the quantum field. The universe does not respond to the content of your words, but to the vibrational charge they carry. When the emotion is coherent, trust, gratitude, calm, love, the field amplifies the signal and returns experiences that match. When there is fear, urgency, or doubt, the field echoes that dissonance. Your personal frequency is shaped by the predominant state of your body. A nervous system in alert emits fragmented, incoherent waves. A system in safety generates a harmonic vibration, one capable of synchronizing with broader realities. This is why feeling good is not spiritual luxury. It is quantum technology. Coherent emotion is the code that reprograms matter. Perceiving yourself at a vibrational level is the beginning of mastery. It means shifting from mental analysis to energetic reading. Does this expand me or contract me? Does this make me feel alive or drained? Every answer, no matter how subtle, is a fine-tuning of your receiving field. And the more you honor these perceptions, the clearer and more reliable the language of intuition becomes, the silent language of vibration. Breath is the frontier between the voluntary and the involuntary, the only physiological process you can both control and surrender to. Bruce Lipton describes it as a bridge between the conscious mind and the autonomic system. With every inhale, you send a biochemical message to your cells. With every exhale, you redefine the energetic field around you. This is why breath is a direct tool for vibrational reprogramming. When the body is in survival mode, the breath becomes shallow and high in the chest, silently signaling to the brain that danger is present. Even unconsciously, this keeps the nervous system in defense and blocks access to intuition. The body cannot listen when it believes it must protect itself. But when you breathe deeply and rhythmically, you activate the vagus nerve, shifting into the parasympathetic system, the circuitry of rest, digestion, and healing. Joe Dispenza explains that conscious breathing decouples the body from mental stress loops. As you inhale rhythmically and exhale slowly, brainwaves reorganize into alpha and theta patterns, the states where intuition becomes accessible. In this space, linear thought gives way to expanded perception. It is the gap between stimulus and response that reveals what the mind alone cannot access. Breathing, therefore, is more than oxygenation. It is tuning. Each respiratory cycle adjusts the frequency between heart, brain, and body, creating physiological coherence. And that coherence reduces internal noise and expands intuitive range. The simple act of inhaling with presence is an energetic recalibration, a silent declaration that you are available to receive. breath is the universal language of the field. When you breathe consciously, the universe responds in harmony. And in the moment the air enters and leaves without effort, you realize the body, the mind, and the field are a single movement. A living pulse guiding you back to the point where all wisdom begins, the now. The heart is more than a biological pump. It is an electromagnetic oscillator that dictates the rhythm of the entire organism. According to the HeartMath Institute, the heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's and extends several feet beyond the body. Bruce Lipton explains that when heart and brain enter synchrony, the cells receive a clear, ordered signal, and the whole body shifts into harmony. Incoherence is vibrational noise, the static that disconnects us from intuition and clarity. When the mind thinks one thing and the heart feels another, the nervous system sends mixed messages. The result is an unstable broadcast. Reality responds with delays, misalignments, and repetition. It's the energetic equivalent of trying to tune into two radio stations at once. The sound distorts, and the body interprets the dissonance as danger. Joe Dispenza's studies using MRI and ECG reveal that heart coherence reorganizes brain waves into higher amplitude, harmonic patterns. This means the mind becomes more receptive and intuition more precise. A coherent electromagnetic field acts as a clean signal to the quantum field, which then responds with aligned synchronicities and opportunities. Cultivating coherence doesn't require complex rituals. It can begin with rhythmic breathing. Inhale for a count of 4, exhale for 6, while evoking an elevated emotion such as gratitude, appreciation, or compassion. This simple practice synchronizes heartbeat and brain rhythm. The body registers safety, the immune system strengthens, and perception expands. When the heart leads the mind, the field arranges itself around peace. Decisions no longer arise from fear, but from clarity. It is in that moment that intellect bows to the wisdom of feeling, and the universe, which has always mirrored your frequency, finally begins to respond in the same language. Intuition doesn't live only in the invisible. It has a physiological address. What we call a premonition is often the body processing subtle information long before the mind forms a thought. Bruce Lipton explains that every cell is a living antenna, capable of perceiving chemical and electromagnetic vibrations in the environment. When those cells are in coherence, intuition flows naturally. When they are under stress, the signal is interrupted. More than 90% of the serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for well-being and emotional clarity, is produced in the gut. Joe Dispenza refers to this system as the second brain, a field of neurons and chemical receptors that translate sensations into guidance. This is why intuitive yes or no is often felt in the belly before being understood in the head. Biology is not just observing intuition, it is participating in it. The tissues of the body, especially the fascia, function as a conductive network of light and information. They store memories, tensions, and old emotions. Where there is physical rigidity, there is also energetic rigidity. To free the body is to free perception. Every conscious stretch, every deep breath, every present movement reconfigures this tissue and restores the capacity to feel the field around you. Intuition blooms when the body learns to trust again. That trust is biochemical, born from proper oxygenation, hormonal regulation, touch, and rest. A safe body becomes a receiver of information, not merely a survival machine. In this harmony, what was once noise becomes signal. What seemed like coincidence reveals itself as pattern. Being intuitive is not an esoteric gift, it is a physiological state of coherence. When you care for the body as a temple of perception, feeding it, moving it, breathing into it, the inner field opens. The invisible begins to speak through chemistry, and wisdom ceases to be mystical to become measurable. You feel, you know, and you act before you need to explain. Between what the body feels and what the mind accepts, there is a gap, a small abyss where intuition often gets lost. This space, which Joe Dispenza calls the zone of incoherence, is the moment when the body already knows something, but the mind hesitates to believe it. Interoception is the sense that perceives what happens inside us: heart rhythm, temperature, muscle tension, the subtle shiver before the right choice. Bruce Lipton describes this mechanism as the biology of perception. The cells do not wait for the brain to decide. They react instantly to the internal environment. The body lives in real time, while the mind, conditioned by memories and narratives, is usually delayed. Intuition appears in that gap, the instant when the body has already perceived the truth, but the mind is still calculating probabilities. The problem is that modern culture glorifies analytical reason and distrusts somatic wisdom. We were trained to silence the body, to ignore palpitations, chills, pauses, and discomfort, labeling them as overreactions or weaknesses. But that is precisely where the internal radar is operating. When the body speaks and is not heard, it repeats the signal, and over time, turns the whisper into a symptom. Reconnecting with interoception is about rebuilding the bridge between feeling and knowing. It doesn't require mysticism, but practice, deep breathing, conscious touch, pauses to listen to your inner rhythm. It is learning to translate the body's language before thought interrupts it. With time, the delay between feeling and acting shrinks, and life begins to flow in sync with your internal field. In the end, the mind-body gap is not a flaw, it's an invitation. It exists so that we may choose to believe the old story of fear or respond to the fresh truth of the body. When that bridge is restored, intuition and reason stop competing and start conversing. The mind thinks, the body confirms, and the field responds. Every time you move spontaneously, dance, walk without a destination, draw without intention, sing without an audience, the body remembers what the mind forgot, that life is movement, not control. Creativity is the language of the soul when it wants to update the body. It is the most direct way to restore the flow between feeling and thinking, dissolving the buildup of stagnant energy disguised as doubt, anxiety, or procrastination. Joe Dispenza explains that during creative states, the brain exits analytical mode and shifts into slower rhythms, alpha and theta, the same ones observed in people in deep meditation. In these states, the body and the field enter direct communication. Ideas are not invented, they are received. Physical movement, art, or sound become antennas that capture subtle frequencies previously beyond the reach of the logical mind. Bruce Lipton adds that when the body moves consciously, it reprograms cells through pleasure and curiosity, two biological forces that increase cellular coherence and trigger the release of dopamine and oxytocin. This creates a fertile internal environment where new neural connections can bloom without the interference of fear. To create is to reprogram yourself in real time. When you dance, paint, play, write, breathe, without agenda, without pressure, you return the system to its original state of openness. The body shifts from defense mechanism to instrument of revelation, and intuition, once muffled, begins to circulate freely again, offering answers that come effortlessly, yet with precision. Creativity is the most human portal to the divine. It does not require transcending the body, it consecrates it. Because when the body moves, the field responds. Gesture becomes frequency, rhythm becomes language, and life, patiently waiting for an opening, finally manifests. Beauty is not an aesthetic luxury, it is a marker of vibrational coherence. When you perceive beauty, the entire body synchronizes. Breathing expands, the heart slows, the mind becomes still. It's as if the field whispers, you are aligned. What we call beauty is in truth the energetic signature of harmony between you and the universe. Bruce Lipton teaches that the body responds biologically to the perception of harmony. In the presence of beauty, cells release substances linked to expansion and regeneration, endorphins, serotonin, nitric oxide. It is an ancient biochemical code signaling to the nervous system that the environment is safe and favorable for creation. Beauty then becomes more than emotion. It becomes the physiology of trust. Joe Dispenza adds that in states of deep appreciation, the brain synchronizes gamma waves, patterns observed during moments of insight, gratitude, and reverence. These waves unify the nervous system, promoting coherence between the electromagnetic fields of the heart and brain. Beauty literally reorganizes your energy. When you watch a sunset, hear a soul-stirring melody, or notice a subtle synchronicity, you are receiving feedback from the field, a sign that your frequency is resonating with life. Beauty is the mirror the universe uses to confirm that you have returned to center. Cultivating beauty in your gaze, your gestures, your daily choices is both spiritual and scientific practice. It is not about decorating the world, but restoring how you see it. Because when perception aligns with beauty, the field responds with more harmony, more flow, more precision. Life begins to reveal, through coincidences and encounters, the natural aesthetics of coherence. The universe doesn't shout, it whispers, and the ear that hears those whispers is attention. Reality is not something that happens outside, it is the reflection of whatever your focus illuminates. That which you choose to notice, consciously or not, expands. This is the principle of the reticular activating system, RAS, the brain's filter that selects among billions of stimuli what appears to be relevant. And what defines relevance? Your vibrational state. Bruce Lipton explains that unconscious beliefs and sustained emotions alter brain chemistry and determine which types of information the body and mind recognize as real. So if the internal field vibrates in fear, the RAS seeks out evidence of danger. If it vibrates in trust, the very same system begins to highlight opportunities, coincidences, and improbable encounters. The outer world is shaped by the inner map. Joe Dispenza adds that focus is a key component of quantum collapse. Attention charged with emotion is the lens that turns potential into event. That's why following signs is not superstition. It is recognizing the dialogue between consciousness and the field. Each synchronicity, every subtle feeling of this way, is the echo of your own emission returning in form and context. Training attention is training creation. When you slow down and observe what vibrates around you, a phrase that keeps appearing, a gaze that arrives at the perfect moment, an obstacle that forces a pause, you begin to decipher the language of the field. Nothing is neutral when you are present. The entire world becomes a living interface of your internal state. Coherent attention is silent power, because when you learn to choose what to sustain and focus, you also choose which reality collapses before your eyes. The path was never hidden. It was simply waiting for the gaze that could recognize it. Intuition, beauty, movement, breath, attention, none of these are isolated gifts. They are different expressions of the same principle, coherence. When body, emotion, and mind stop competing and begin to listen to one another, consciousness returns to its rightful seat, the center. From there, life stops being a battlefield and becomes a field of resonance. Bruce Lipton reminds us that beliefs and emotional states don't just influence the mind, they literally reprogram biology. Every cell reads the internal field before reacting to the external. When vibration becomes coherent, the body enters harmony, and reality rearranges itself to mirror this new signature. You stop being a product of the environment and become the environment that produces new scenarios. Joe Dispenza shows that when coherence between heart and brain stabilizes, the body emits an ordered electromagnetic field, a clean signal capable of altering what once appeared unchangeable. The universe does not reward deservingness, it resonates with frequency. Every moment of conscious breathing, every instant of gratitude, every silent pause is an instruction issued to the field. The return of intuition, the magnetism of beauty, the subtle synchronicities. All of it is the field responding to your new emission. These are not random miracles. They are natural consequences of a coherent physiology and an awakened consciousness. When the body becomes antenna instead of armor, life ceases to be a guessing game and becomes dialogue. Intuition is not the end of the mind, but its integration. Coherence is not the absence of emotion, but rhythm. And the quantum field is not a distant theory. It is the living mirror that returns, informs, and encounters, whatever you choose to sustain as vibration. The secret was never to control reality. It has always been to remember to broadcast from wholeness.